800-555-2085. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-555-2085. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-555-2085 or biglou.com.
Russia is facing a growing gasoline crisis as the war with Ukraine hits its domestic economy. Correspondent Ken Lorman reports.
Reports say few.
Houston's leading tree care professionals. Call 281-441-4179.
Thank goodness our weather experts are providing us with hurricane tracking charts and reminding us to be prepared for big storms. But they overlook one very important thing, the damage and destruction from broken limbs and uprooted trees. Call Louis Flory at Ability Tree Experts today. My friend for nearly 40 years, at 281-441-4179, and let him explain how this problem can be.
What we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country. This message must be read in every newspaper, heard on every radio, seen on every television. This message must resound throughout the entire interlink.
And now, your host.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Chris X.
Oh man, it is Monday, isn't it? Ready for a new week? You guys ready? I'm as ready as I'm going to get. All right, good afternoon. Welcome to ChrisXradio. Glad to have you here with us. I am the aforementioned X-Man. We have assumed control of the airwaves. We plan to maintain control of these airwaves here for the next couple hours here on the Voice of Texas. When Wayne D shows up on your doorstep, it's usually a bad day. But now he's showing up at the station in the mornings along with Kreger's, so they're doing their thing in the mornings. I got to hear a little bit of it this morning. So it's Wayne D and having a good time. So I'm glad that he's, Wayne was filling in for Chris Salcedo on a regular basis. So now that, Chris has moved on, once again, I heard him address that. No, nobody fired Chris Salcedo. He didn't get fired from his Newsmax TV show, and he didn't get fired from KSEV. He left. He's going to greener pastures. He's gone over to The Torch, which is a new Glenn Beck venture. So I'm not quite sure what exactly all that is, but Glenn Beck usually, he tends to do pretty well on his ventures. So, but anyway, our new morning show, Wayne D. And I like I'm going to keep using it, cracking heads and dropping leads. I don't know if he's ever actually dropped any lead on anyone, but you could say he figuratively cracked some heads. So don't worry, though. Let's say new morning show, still the same thing here in the afternoons. I haven't changed. I'm not going anywhere. Still the same old conservative common sense that you've grown used to for the last, 8 years now on KSEV? So I'm still here. No one's run me off yet. Hey, Lukash? By the way, I've got nicknames for my producer. I like it's either Lucas, which is his name, or Lukash, because his last initial starts with H. So Lukash sounds good. My favorite is probably Casholine, so I think I'm going to start calling him Producer Casholine. Do we still have a job? I didn't get fired or anything yet, have I?
You rang.
And then he turns into Lurch from the Addams Family.
I mean, we're still in the air. We're still here. Let's go.
Yeah, we're still on the air after what happened on Friday was weird. There we go. I have the Xenomorph from Alien. He's my security here for Studio X. And then, of course, there's also that, too. My license plate with Chris X on it. There you go. And there's a little microphone right there showing that as well. So all those who want to do it, I try not to block it with my chair too often. So, but nonetheless, so we're everywhere. And then, of course, you can always listen on our app, which is the new app. If you're on the iPhone, you can download the new app and update it, so make sure you do that. Casholine, any word yet? Have they gotten the Android yet? I know you're an Androider.
I am, but I haven't heard yet. Still in the works.
Okay.
I think they're it's wading through the process, whatever that is.
Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but I'll take it as though you know what you're talking about. So
Apps, man.
we'll go. It is an app, and that's about my extensive knowledge of an app. So we got the new app, which is good if you're on the iPhone. If you're on the Android, you can still go to KSEVradio.com and still listen live there. So you can still listen live on your phone, even if you're on a Android, until they get the Android app, I guess, lined up. So, all right, so there's all that stuff. So the brand new morning show, we're still going to keep things the same here in the afternoons. We're not going to change too much. I mean, we'll keep having fun, doing what we do, and doing the thing. Okay, so there actually is a lot of news today. So I'll set the table, and then we'll start getting into it. As always, we take your phone calls as well, 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. According to a new report, Iran has put a $10 million bounty on the head of Barron Trump. Well, that's going to make Donald Trump just stop bombing them, right? No, I don't think so. And then we had Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent came out today and said the U.S. is launching an economic onslaught to isolate Iran from the global economy, warning that countries and businesses that do any business with Tehran will risk provoking U.S. sanctions. And there was no ambiguity with what he was saying. None. So there's that. We can get into that. President Trump announced this morning that he will impose a 50% duty on all trucks, cars, and steel from Canada, in response to ridiculously high tariffs on American agricultural products. Wait, hold on. So you're telling me that Canada has tariffs on the U.S., but the Supreme Court ruled that we can't put tariffs on Canada? Trump took to social media today, True Social, to announce these forthcoming duties, declaring that Canada will no longer be treated like a state of the Union. Canada has been ripping off the United States of America for years. Their ridiculously high tariffs on our farmers and farm products has made life impossible for these great American patriots and has long created a $60 billion deficit between our two countries, adding that it's not sustainable and not anymore. When we were having the big tariff argument, this was my point. Somehow it is okay for every country in the world to establish tariffs to put on America. But we've got oligarchs in our country. I'm calling them oligarchs. In our country that have somehow overruled the president because he can't make an even playing field and install tariffs on these countries that have been tariffing the hell out of us for years, decades. As the church lady would say, interesting. Speaking of interesting, Carmelo Anthony's conviction and his 35-year prison sentence will stand after a Texas judge formally denied his bid for a new trial. Now, his new judge goes by the name of James Talarico. No, just kidding. He's just a dirtbag leftist who sided with Carmelo Anthony murdering Austin Metcalf. We learned over the weekend, by the way, information that was withheld from the first trial wasn't taken in, was going to be brought to this trial. You want to know why the trial was canceled and they didn't do it? Because Carmelo Anthony had fantasized about murdering someone, stabbing them with a knife, and then licking the blood off the blade, and that was withheld from the first trial, which is why he only got a 35-year prison sentence, which he'll serve about 17 years. That's what he's supposed to. Who knows what he'll end up doing? So there's that. But how does James Talarico think about what does he feel about things? I mean, I wouldn't want to put...
in your state of Texas, we see what happened with Carmelo Anthony, and you said it was a tragedy.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I've done a lot of work in the State House on justice reform, and right now we've got a system that doesn't serve all Americans equally, and we know that Black Texans have been have not gotten the justice they deserve in many cases. And you know, I'm not an expert on this particular case, but I know that there were no Black members of the jury. And to me, that's the only evidence you need to really prove that this system is not working for Black Texans.
Okay, so that's the only evidence you need, James. You didn't need the other evidence of the kid stabbing him in the heart with a knife and murdering him in a place he wasn't supposed to be after he was told to leave multiple times, after he'd fantasized about stabbing somebody with a knife and then licking the blood off the blade. And he'd fantasized about this and fighting with people, had been a troublemaker, had been all kinds of issues. None of that matters. None of that matters because it's black on white and you're trying to get black voters. Oh, that's right. Representative Jasmine Crockett said the black community in her state is not too keen on James Talarico just yet. During a recent interview, Crockett, who previously claimed race played a role in her primary loss to Talarico. Yeah, you stated the Democrats are racist. You're right. She's right, but not in the way you're trying to push it. She said, I personally don't feel like the excitement necessarily exists within the black community right now. I don't feel like they're excited, right? But I do have some amazing black candidates that are running for office in some of in the largest counties. So if I can introduce black folk to them, and that may excite them and get them to the polls. Now, some would say I'm being racist by using that vernacular, but I'm simply imitating Jazzy, as she likes to be called, Jazzy Crockett, when she turns on her black scent. Because she does that a lot. Even though she was raised in an upper middle class area, she's a wealthy person. She didn't campaign when she first ran for office, but now she's sister girl at any given moment, and sister girl has not been sold completely on old James Talarico. So there you go. It was funny, I had a caller years ago, called in the program, was like, Chris, I was imitating former mayor Sylvester Turner, who told criminals to just chill and don't commit any crimes. And then that way you can go home and we can go home during COVID. And said I could be constituted as racist. And I went, what did I say that was racist? He's like, well, just the way you're doing. I'm like, I'm simply imitating the way he sounds. Well, I was like, am I racist when I imitate Donald Trump? Am I racist when I imitate Hillary Clinton? Am I racist when I imitate anyone else? No. I said, well, I think that tells me more about you than it does about me now, doesn't it? He was a nice guy. He wasn't a jerk. And he was actually sort of looking out for me, which I appreciate. But I don't think anyone is protected from sarcasm. At least I don't think. I mean, I guess I could imitate James Talarico, who's worked on his Obama-style delivery. I'm James Talarico. I'm so smart. I'm a good guy. No, you're a freakazoid. You're a total weirdo. You're pandering as hard as you possibly can. And, well, it's not going they're still neck and neck in the polls, by the way. But I think as Ken Paxton finally starts getting some of this money in and starts spending it, he can even things up pretty quickly. James Talarico literally has almost a new saying every day that shows what a weirdo he is. Shows what a radical leftist he truly is. He's campaigning as a moderate. He's running a campaign entirely against everything he has stood for, voted for, and said for at least the last 5-6 years. But no, you're not allowed to talk about any of that. We're only allowed to talk about his commercial with his peepaw. And that's the only thing you're allowed to do. He's like a regular guy. They're convincing fools who don't pay attention that he's a regular guy, just like you and me. A regular guy who loves the trans children. Oh, by the way, he's against transing children now. He was for it in the primary but now he's against it. And he's against 6 genders. It's back to 2 genders. He's against, even though he said it's actually 6 genders. Speaking of liberalism run amok, Governor Gavin Newsom in California has signed the controversial Stop Nick Shirley Act into law on Saturday, which critics say will suppress investigative journalism in the state. You think? Penalizing the investigators? Yeah, that'll do it. All right, you're listening to ChrisXradio. Let's take a break because I'm way over. We'll come back, do a short little segment, and then we'll catch up with Matt Locke. Matt Locke. I need the Matt Locke drop. Matt Locke. That's what I would say. He's a talk show host during the week from 9 to 11 on WBAP, and then on weekends he's out solving mysteries and crimes. because he's Matt Locke. All right, you're listening to ChrisXradio. We're just getting started. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You're listening to ChrisXradio on the Voice of Texas.
Tune in to the Ray Massey Reverse Mortgage Show each Friday at 1 p.m. and Saturdays at 3 p.m. with Treybo Mortgage. Or call Ray directly at 855-266-1600 or online at reversemortgages4Texans.com.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate in O'Hara Homes. I'm going to drop some truth bombs that I believe. We're in a global war against evil. Donald Trump is a wartime president. COVID-19 was not the bioweapon the jab was. A surgical mask will not prevent you from getting a virus. The 2020 election was rigged. If you're watching mainstream media, you're being lied to. The elites of this world have been running the largest human trafficking and pedophile ring. The Ukraine is a deep state stronghold. God is real and created two genders, male and female, and Jesus died for our sins. If you're not awake yet, you better wake up. If you want a real estate company that'll give you the truth, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393 or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. If you're looking for a contractor, call O'Hara Homes at the same number, 281-373-3393. God wins this war. Nothing can stop what is coming. Where we go one, we go all. God bless America and God bless Texas.
Plumbing emergencies never happen at a convenient time. Nix Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nix Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-868-9907, or visit us on the web, nixplumbing.com.
MPL 38548.
Chris X here to tell you about Humble Amco Transmission and AC Specialists. People who know go to Amco. I personally trust Jay Streckfast and Humble Amco with all of my vehicle's needs. With complete car care, they'll take care of all of your auto needs as well. Always a free check engine light inspection, and tell them that Chris X sent you for a free engine scan. Call Jay today at 281-446-0862. That's 281-446-0862, or online at humbleamco.com.
Office is located 1 Sugar Creek Center, Sugar Land, Texas.
Thinking of buying a home? It's important to start off with a solid pre-approval. Hi, I'm Kathy Baker from Baker Mortgage. Yes, we ask a lot of questions, but that's because we're not going to give you a pre-approval that's going to blow up as you're trying to cross the finish line. What's figured in there for property taxes? If it didn't come up, you really don't know what you're pre-approved for. That should make you wonder what else they may have left out. At Baker Mortgage, we get it right. We haven't been around for 60 years because we're lucky. Yes, we have wholesale rates, 80-10-10s, and all kinds of programs, but in the end, it's really about taking good care of people, and they continue to come back and send their kids, their friends, and sometimes their parents. Whether you're buying, building, or refinancing, call us at Baker Mortgage. We're at 281-313-6683. That's 281-313-MOVE or directly at bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License 263213.
You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. ChrisXradio.
This song still is just one of the greatest, like walk-up song, you know. You're a batter. It was was it in the 2000s? No, I think it's the 80s. But it's a great. This is the perfect stereo. If I was going to write a metal song or an 80s sort of metal song, this is kind of what you'd try to do. Turn it up. See, there you go. And I'm telling you, the lead singer for this band. When the guy, it's autographed. Turn up the radio, by the way, for those who can't hear it online. When Kevin DuBrow, the lead singer for Quiet Riot, died, this guy should have joined their band. He could sing it perfectly. So, anyway, welcome back to ChrisXradio. I'm the aforementioned X-Man. Glad to have you here with us. I'm working on the nicknames. We're going to go with Cash O'Lean, by the way. He's running things. He's flying the mothership today. So if you got any questions, well, don't call in yet because it's going to be a very short segment. Then we're catching up with Matt Locke. He's got a few nicknames. Of course, I call him Lockster usually. What's up, Lockster? That's how I answer the phone. Every now and then, though, I call him the Loch Ness Matster, because that's what he is. If you've ever seen the guy in real life, he's a giant. Now, he's a gentle giant, but he's like all 6'6". He's a big dude, so he's kind of huge. He's someone Trump would call huge. Okay, he's huge, but he's also terrific and he's fantastic. And he followed Trump around on the campaign trail back in the days leading up to COVID. He was working for one of the TV networks. So the guy's been to more Trump rallies than just about anybody, with the exception of Donald Trump. So, well, he is the host of the 9 to 11 a.m. show weekdays on 820 a.m. WBAP. They're also on the FM dial, which I don't know what that is. I'm sure he could let us know. He's also known as the voice of DFW. Matt Locke, he'll join us here on the other side of this break. Let's go ahead and take the break, and then we'll come back and catch up with the Loch Ness Matster, as I like to call him. Look at that. I got Luke Cash O'Lean running the program. I've got the Loch Ness Matster joining us. I think we need to get that trending. Anyone got a bigger social media than me? I mean, everybody does. I'm still in the algorithm. Matt's got a good social media volume. He tried to do an experiment. Tried to get me up. No, I'm still back at about whatever it was. I can't get out of it. All right, don't you go anywhere. You're listening to ChrisXradio. Matt Locke, the voice of DFW, joins us here next on ChrisXradio. Don't you go away. We'll be right back.
Elections have consequences. So does your radio dial. Don't touch it. ChrisXradio returns after this.
Hi, this is Louis Flory. You've been relying on Ability Tree experts for decades to protect and maintain the valuable trees on your property. You can continue to rely on the same professional services. So call Ability Tree experts at 281-441-4179 today.
When it's time to replace a roof, some people put it off until an emergency arises. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. I understand. People tell me it's way too complicated and too expensive.
Our customers tell us they wish they would have done it sooner.
I hear it all the time. Once the roof is replaced, they wonder why they waited so long, because it's really not that complicated. We show up on time, we quote you a fair price, we replace most roofs in just one day. At Tejas Roofing, we take pride in making the process easy.
The cleanup is phenomenal. People always comment that it looks like we were never there. And now those customers sleep better at night knowing your new roof has been installed correctly.
When you know you need a new roof, don't put it off. Call me now, Deb Tejada at Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304. Estimates are free, 281-251-0304. When you need roofing repairs, a new roof or remodeling, call us at Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
Hello, friends. Let's be honest. Every business says they're better, but the ones that earn the prestigious BBB seal back it up. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And it instantly identifies reputable businesses you can trust. So look for the BBB seal, because it's looking out for you. It's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org. That's bbb.org.
Checo Pro Joe here. My guest this week will be Cody Johnson from Garage Door Doctor. For all of your garage door needs, contact Garage Door Doctor at 281-343-3632.
Join Joe every Saturday at 1 o'clock here on AM 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas.
Thank you so much for your radio show. I listen to you all the time, and I find it of great value.
Jim, that means so much to me. I never dreamed when I started doing this 22 years later I'd still be on the air with fine folks like yourself.
Well, we may not get a lot of people calling in, but I'm sure there's lots and lots of people listening because your advice is very good.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you.
The Backyard Bay Radio Show every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. here on AM 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas.
From the KSEV Weather Center, tonight expect partly cloudy skies and humid conditions with a low of 79. Tomorrow will bring partial sunshine and toasty temperatures, reaching a high of 101. Tomorrow night will be clear to partly cloudy, remaining warm and humid with a low of 80. As we move into Wednesday, anticipate hot weather with partial sunshine and a high of 100. Thursday will also be hot with a mix of clouds and sun, and there is a chance of a thunderstorm in spots during the afternoon with the high of 100. With the KSEV Weather Center forecast, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Jason Caterina.
And now, back to ChrisXradio on the Voice of Texas.
Welcome back to ChrisXradio. I'm the aforementioned X-Man. Glad to have you here with us on the Voice of Texas. Speaking of the voice, it is time to bring our guest to the program. It is Matt Locke, none other than the voice of DFW. He is the host of the 9 to 11 a.m. program, The Matt Locke Show, weekdays on 8:20 a.m. WBAP up in Big D. Matt, always good to catch up with you. Thanks for being here this afternoon.
Oh, always, my friend. Thanks for the invite.
Well, it's always good to catch up with that. You know, the nicknames like the Loch Ness Matster. I know that's one of my favorites. I was going to say I was mentioning how your tiny stature. That it's so funny because there's so many cases of media people. They have these really big booming voices, and then you meet them. It's kind of like Wayne's World 2 when they. What was it the one where they meet the guy and he's this tiny little guy and he doesn't look anything like he sounds. In your case, I would say you almost look exactly the way you sound. You're about 6'6", about I don't know how many pounds. I wouldn't call you fat. You're just big, and you actually represent that booming voice of yours.
Yeah, everything matches. When you meet me, the voice is all comparable to everything else. I weigh 270, by the way.
Man, that's kind of trim for someone your size, man. You're a large individual, but as I mentioned, you're a gentle giant. That's the other thing too, though. You don't have a big ego like a lot of people in radio do, and you're actually a fairly nice guy. And one of the reasons why I like to get you on, when it comes to your opinions, you generally don't varnish them too well. You give them freely. As I say, from what was it, True Grit? You don't offer much sugar with your criticisms. You give a little bit more salt. And boy, there's a lot going on. Okay, so first of all, I have no idea what you covered on your show today, but I got a lot to cover today. I'm assuming you may have talked a little bit about Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, talking about the economic onslaught coming on to talk about the global economy when dealing with Iran and D-Day for them, basically.
Oh, yeah. And my only question to all of it, Chris, and I talked about it this morning, is we keep being told that Iran is on the verge of collapse, that they're about done. I would love to see that happen. I really think that we're in a spot today where most Norm and Normas of the world, they're not real happy about, $3.50, $3.75 gas, number one. Their pocketbooks are stretched a little bit. I know that President Trump talked about ground beef coming in and taking off tariffs and that kind of stuff. I really think President Trump, I think he knows, and I think he wants to get a deal done in Iran. The problem is they're just crazy. So I think this is a fantastic move. It's an interesting thing for me because it's not just Iran. It's Russia, it's China, it's any country that may be trying to help Iran out, which you and I both know all of them are trying to help out because we're the number one superpower. And if you can take us down, then other countries will.
Boy, 100%. We're talking with Matt Locke, the voice of DFW, host of the 9 to 11 a.m. show on WBAP up in Dallas. The other thing, too, is that we know that probably the most affected by this is China, of course. China, as Trump likes to say. Because they were getting something like 90% of their oil through the back channels, if you will, through sweetheart deals, through whatever sort of means they were doing with all these little back dealings going on, whereas this seems to be an attempt to really straighten out these little backdoor deals, and it looks like it could economically strangle the nation. And I guess, and we already seen they've got massive inflation, and then, of course, we'll I guess, see how that eventually affects what's left of the regime. Do you think this is going to be an effective strategy to get things sort of straightened out here before the midterms?
I really think it's the only strategy, to be quite honest. We've bombed and missiled everything that we can. I do believe, by the way, and I hate saying this, but I think America is short on some very important munitions, because why else would President Trump pull back, right? I mean, you got to look at this very realistically. I think Trump's in a spot where I think he wants to finish it, but former administration gave all of our really nice munitions to Ukraine. So I don't doubt that we might not be at a point where it's like, do we really make that decision to go in there and drop some missiles or bombs? Because you know what happens, Chris. If we go in there and shoot at Iran, what do? They send out these $200 and $300 drones into UAE, into Saudi Arabia, into all of our friends. We may not have enough of these interceptors to be playing around with that right now. So I think right now, I think it's a good decision to hold back. You see what happens, and you figure out which side of Iran is going to collapse first, because there's 3 different sects over there, and it just depends on who's running the country that day to see what's going to take place.
Yeah, no, once again, we're talking with Matt Locke. He's the voice of DFW, host of the 9 to 11 a.m. show on weekdays on WBAP, 820 a.m. up in Dallas. The other thing, too, I wanted to talk to you about, not to completely change the subject, but Carmelo Anthony's conviction and his 35-year prison sentence was held up. In other words, he was denied the new trial. And also, we learned over the weekend, there were a lot of things that were left out of the initial trial, which, of course, was being brought to the forefront of this one. Do you think, like I said, once again, Carmelo Anthony talking about he was fantasizing about stabbing someone and then licking the blood off the knife, and all of these things that really painted Mr. Anthony in the light where he should have been painted, and he kind of got a sweetheart deal. Do you think that played anything to do with why he got denied his new bid for a trial, and they went, okay, this worked out about as good as it could for him?
Well, I think he's very fortunate, like you just said, that he didn't get a retrial, because if he got a retrial, he might actually have gotten more time than 35 years in jail. Very, very checkered past, very sad. I talked about this on the show this morning. Look, there were 2 men in this situation who both had their lives destroyed. One young man dead, the other young man killed him, and now is going to spend the next 35 years in prison. It's not a good deal, but look, I mean, for whatever reason, they're trying to make this a race-baiting story. You got to give his attorneys credit, of course. I mean, you got to do everything you can for your client. You want to, exhaust every, option and all that stuff. So I don't fault the kid for trying. I think he had a really bad home life, to be quite honest with you. Probably not raised real well. The parents got very rich off of a GoFundMe page, and then he went in and, he went under the tent and stabs the guy with a knife, and here we are. It's a sad, sad story, but I think he got the best that he could get, and I think that his defense attorneys did the best job they could do for him.
Yeah, considering now that we're learning more details of things that actually wasn't included in the first trial, well, then, yeah, it looks like he probably got off fairly easy. Now, once again, he's going to serve, roughly 17 out of the 35 years if he can behave himself behind bars, which we'll see. But that being said, you're right. The stuff coming out by what he was doing and the other things, that really changes the narrative. And you're right. He could have possibly gotten a far worse outcome if they went through this. I know usually that isn't the case, but this is one of those cases where the social justice warrior showed up and tried to manipulate a trial, and maybe they got him the best deal they could. Speaking of Carmelo Anthony, the other reason I bring this up is now he's got a brand new defender running for U.S. Senate here in Texas. James Talarico, we like to call him, has said so black men can't get a fair trial here in Texas because of I guess in his world, you can't just hunt somebody down and go cause a fight, stab in the heart, and kill them and get fair treatment. I don't know. What do you think about Talarico's statements regarding Carmelo Anthony since he weighed in?
Well, James can't get black people to vote for him. He reminds me of the Rear Admiral, or Pete Buttigieg. You may remember him. White guys that are feminine and kind of sissy pants, they don't do well with the black community. And, of course, James Talarico doesn't do well with the black community. Of course, Jasmine Crockett said it. She's going to lead that deal. James is going to have a tough time with that voting bloc. I don't think he's going to do well with Hispanics either. And so that's what you do. You go on to the Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God, and you tell the blacks that you're in their corner. Hey, you got a raw deal. Hey, it's because of your skin color. Hey, let's go to social media and make sure everybody knows that you were discriminated against. It's really the only thing the Democrat Party has left, and it's really the only play that James Talarico has.
And he follows in a long line of Democrats. Hillary Clinton went on and said she carries around hot sauce in her purse, which I don't think anybody bought. But once again, their level of pandering to the black community holds no bounds. And then also, Joe Biden went on and said, "Well, you know what? If you don't vote for me, you ain't black." And for some reason, they give them all passes, and I don't know why and how they can convince, like I said, in the past, they've been able to convince, black people to vote for them. Well, in this case, I think you just pointed out why it's not necessarily being effective. And it doesn't help that old Jasmine Crockett is out there saying, you know what, the black community is not a big fan of Mr. Talarico. She doesn't seem to be helping his case at all. Are we watching the middle of a civil war, not only in the Democrat Party with their radical insurgency known as the DSA, but are we watching one here between Jazzy Crockett and James Talarico as well?
Oh, my goodness, yes. But the Democrat Party has a big problem. And the Democrats, the moderate Democrats, like the Donna Brazils of the party, are trying to play it off as a Tea Party-like movement when the Republican Party went through the Tea Party movement, turned more MAGA Republican. She's trying to play it off as the Democrats are a big tent. The problem is the moderate Democrats are going away. You got Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin and those folks who are getting older. They're going to retire. They're going to leave. And you're bringing in these younger Democrat socialists who are disillusioned with the party, and they want everything free. They want to be in control. COVID gave them some ammunition. They liked it when they could tell people to wear masks and stay in their homes. And now they want to tell people what they can and can't do in the economy, in business, all of that stuff. And of course, the evil, greedy trillionaire that is Elon Musk is spurring that deal. I mean, it's Bernie Sanders on steroids. They're just trying to, replace the Bernie bros with something that's going to completely wreck America. And I think, honestly, Chris, I think they crash and burn hard. I don't think America wants a socialistic type system. We just came through COVID. We remember it all too well. We remember cheaper stuff. And I think people honestly look at it and go, hey, Republicans suck, but the Democrats are crazy. So I'm going to hold my nose, hope for another 4 years of something to get done, and see what happens.
All right. Thanks for being here today. Once again, Matt Locke, the voice of DFW. He is the host from the 9 to 11 a.m. show on every weekday on WBAP, 820 a.m. The big blowtorch up there in Dallas-Fort Worth. And I always appreciate having Matt on because we agree on a lot of issues. Every now and then we go. We didn't delve off into any conspiracies today, so we'll save that for the next time. I like to get him on here about once a month or so just to kind of keep in touch with what's going on. But he is dominating that. He's not just dominating the 9 to 11 a.m. slot. He's dominating all the radio slots and the ratings up there. So keep up the great work. Once again, Matt Locke, the voice of DFW. Let's go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come back and we can start taking your phone calls here as well. 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. It's not like we don't have plenty to talk about. I didn't even ask him about the $10 million bounty on Barron Trump. Iran doesn't seem to be doing anything to ingratiate themselves to make this any better. So depending on how it works out, they better hope a Democrat gets in office. But that's not for another couple years at least. They better be ready to wait this thing out. All right, 281-558-KSEV. You're listening to ChrisXradio. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere.
You're listening to ChrisXradio. ChrisXradio, the voice of Texas. The Three Amigos.
You all are appointment listening. I listen to you every Friday afternoon. Everything stops for you all.
The Three Amigos. Make an appointment every Friday afternoon at 4 on the voice of Texas.
Hi, y'all. It's Kathy from Baker Mortgage. With all the scary stuff we've been through, it's still true that timing is everything, and the time to buy is now. But don't go looking without a solid pre-approval in hand. And this includes an application and a detailed discussion about property taxes. If you didn't have the talk, about property taxes, you really don't know what you're pre-approved for. That should make you wonder what else they may have left out. Mortgages are personal. Let's face it, we're dealing with your home and your money, and it doesn't get much more personal than that. When it's the largest transaction that most people will ever be involved in, imagine having someone on your side looking out after you. What a concept. We audit your closing statement to make sure you're not paying for things that you're not supposed to. Do you think your big bank's going to do that? Probably not. For all of your mortgage needs, call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License number 263213.
This is Shannon Bream. Join me for Fox News Sunday as we sit down with a diverse and dynamic group of guests featuring interviews with political, business, and public affairs newsmakers from the U.S. and abroad. All part of the Sunday political block from Fox News Radio. Fox News Sunday, every Sunday.
Shannon has all the big news stories of the week. Don't miss it. Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream, 10 a.m. Sunday mornings, the voice of Texas.
Tune in each Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for On the Money with your host and CEO of Allied Wealth Texas, Ryan Wheelis, who can help you live your richest life possible during your retirement years. That's each Sunday at 9 a.m. right here on AM 700 KSEV.
Thank goodness our weather experts are providing us with hurricane tracking charts and reminding us to be prepared for big storms. But they overlook one very important thing, the damage and destruction from broken limbs and uprooted trees. Call Louis Flory at Ability Tree Experts today. My friend for nearly 40 years, at 281-441-4179, and let him explain how this problem can be minimized with professional pruning. You see, when the tree canopy is too thick and dense, the tree can be completely blown over and tree limbs broken, causing terrible damage to the tree and maybe your home. Where tree limbs break, sap will ooze, and that attracts harmful insects. So you need to call Louis Flory today at 281-441-4179 and have his experts come out and professionally prune your trees to withstand sudden storms that are so frequent this time of year. Visit their website at abilitytrees.com. That's 281-441-4179. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professional.
And now we return you to your regular.
And he didn't hate it, but didn't love it. I may have been to an OMG burger maybe years ago, but I don't really remember it, which tells me something. But I'm always on the lookout for a new burger joint. Anybody has any suggestions? I'm always open to those suggestions. Anyway, welcome back to the program. You've reached the final segment of the first hour of your Manic Monday edition of the program. If you want to join us here before we run out of time in this first hour, get you loaded for the second hour, 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. There's a whole lot of news going on. Iran apparently, according to a new report, has put a $10 million bounty on the head of Barron Trump. Talk about the bizarre times that we live in. This, you want to know why the president and the family needs the security they need? Well, this is why. And these are terrorist, murderous thugs in these countries, places like Iran. Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent said today the U.S. is launching an economic onslaught, the D-Day of finance, basically, from the global economy, warning that countries and businesses that do any business with Tehran will risk provoking U.S. sanctions. And, of course, Tehran responded by saying it's an act of war if they don't do business with them. So, I know it's weird. It's funny that a rogue, terrorist, murderous nation would respond by being a rogue, terrorist, murderous nation. Carmelo Anthony's conviction and 35-year prison sentence will stand after a Texas judge, a new judge, formally denied his bid for a new trial. It looked like it was going to get a whole lot worse for Carmelo. He really, considering he got 35 years and will only have to serve 17 with good time for stabbing a kid in the heart unprovoked, basically, and murdering him in a place he wasn't supposed to be. Once again, everybody made it a race issue because a black kid murdered a white kid, and they tried to make the white kid out to be the bad guy, when the white kid has no history of being a bad guy whatsoever, but the black kid does. The black kid has been a troublemaker for a very long time and had fantasized about murdering or at least stabbing someone. And poor Austin Metcalf got stabbed in the heart because Carmelo Anthony challenged him over and over again to get him out of the tent he wasn't supposed to be in at a school-sanctioned event, and he had a knife. Everybody leaves that part out. Everybody leaves out the part where, listen, Carmelo's getting a raw deal. He stabbed the kid in the heart with a knife at an event you weren't supposed to have any weapons at. It didn't even matter if they got in a fight, which they didn't. Apparently, he just looked for an opportunity to stab someone, and he stabbed the kid right in the heart and killed him, which is terrible. And then, Jasmine Crockett, speaking of the black community, they don't seem to be too keen on James Talarico. That's not good. the Democrats are going to have a tough time flipping that seat if they can't get the black votes. But we'll see. The polls are still neck and neck right now, and Ken Paxton hasn't even started advertising yet. So that should be coming here relatively soon. If it isn't, well, then that's a big mistake on the Republican Party. So, all right, let's go to the phones here before we run out of time in this this last segment of the first hour. Let's go to Bart listening in Spring. Bart, thank you for hanging on. Welcome to ChrisXradio.
Hey, Chris. I was just reading on Epic Times. They were saying how the Supreme Court ruled today supporting Trump's executive order 14399. Did you hear about that?
I don't. What is Executive Order 14399? I'm not sure.
It's restricting the post office from sending out mail-in ballots to anybody that's not a registered citizen. If they're not a citizen, they won't get a mail-in ballot. And this could be an avalanche, a huge turn in the midterms, because that would restrict all the cheating. In the 23 Democratic states, they're going to make them only mail out ballots to people who are citizens. You didn't hear anything about this?
I haven't heard anything about this. It'll be interesting. I'll do some research on it and see what I can find. I don't know how much of a like I said, I don't know how many necessarily ballots are going out to illegal voters. The problem is we've got ballots being sent to people, American citizens that no longer live there, and people are just grouping them up. And then, of course, you've got, once again, the cheating machine running on the Democrat side of the aisle. So I don't know how much of a difference, but I mean, it's clearly, if that is the case, it'd be a step in the right direction. I guess we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what I can find. But it's Supreme Court decision 14399.
Correct. They know just in the last election they caught 200,000 pre-printed ballots that came from China that came in through the New York and the Philadelphia ports. So this is a huge issue that they're using these ballots to ballot collect. And if they can't mail them out through the Postal Service, that'll stop a lot of this. I was just shocked that the Supreme Court said the executive order can go through for this midterm election. Anyhow, I appreciate you researching. You usually do a good job of checking stuff out.
Well, thank you. I like to go through there and make sure we're dealing with facts, because there's a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of misinformation online, so it's hard to get to the facts sometimes. You got to hit multiple, places to get to the basic truth, and everybody's got their spin. So, but no, this sounds like a really good step in the right direction. And once again, clearly, you go look at the numbers and things, especially when we start going back and looking at the nefarious dealings of 2020, and then of course, and many of these other areas with what's been happening with these elections, and the Democrats' all-out assault to try to stop any sort of voter verification process really tells you what we need to know. So it's thanks for the call, Bart. We're out of time, but that is something we need to, really crack down on, because if you got millions of votes coming in, or some of these races are being decided by 1,000 votes in these counties, cities, these Senate seats, these primaries. So it's, like I said, people think, oh, it's done. It's funny watching the Democrats say it never happens, and then each time they get pointed out where someone gets caught doing illegal voting, they go, well, it's just rare. Let's check into it. No, don't check into it. That's the last thing we can afford. Hour number 2 is up next. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
700 KSEV, Tomball, Houston, and streaming online at KSEVradio.com, the voice of Texas.
Hour from Town Hall, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced the most sweeping sanctions against Iran in U.S. history, framing them as the single greatest financial offensive ever marshaled against an adversary.
Bessent said the new measures will broaden the Trump administration's existing Iran sanctions regime, adding secondary sanctions on foreign entities, banks, and countries that continue to do business with Tehran. He urged allies and other nations to choose sides, quote, either with us or against us, warning that non-compliance will face massive economic consequences. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi dismissed the sanctions as a sign of U.S. defeat and warned of further defeat for Washington. Iran state media also called the move, quote, an implicit admission of the enemy's humiliating defeat. Bernie Bennett, Washington.
The Postal Service is advancing a Trump administration plan to strengthen oversight of mail-in voting as the issue moves through the courts. correspondent Ken Lorman reports.
USPS has finalized a rule requiring voter eligibility lists and unique tracking barcodes for federal mail ballots. The administration says the changes are designed to prevent ineligible voting and improve election security. 23 states have sued, and a federal judge blocked implementation for this year's midterms. The administration has appealed to the Supreme Court, which has not yet ruled. Ken Lorman reporting.
Crews have started to contain a wildfire in the Sierra Nevada foothills that destroyed more than 30 homes as it spread perilously close to neighborhoods in Reno, Nevada. Containment reached 27%, and there was no new growth of the blaze, which has held steady at about 23 square miles since Sunday. On Wall Street, the Dow by 140 points, the Nasdaq dropped 200, the S&P 500 lower by 21 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hey, y'all, I'm Willie Robertson.
And I'm Corey Robertson.
We partnered with Echo. It's a new platform, not just streaming.
Movies and series that are safe for your family. I love a podcast.
Plus, Echo Daily Devotionals.
Echo. Hey, Willie, what is Echo?
Echo is my pet squirrel. Okay, now, Echo is not just faith-friendly, it is faith-driven.
Be a part of something better.
Echo.
Echo.
That's where I want to be.
That's EKKL.com.
Subscribe now.
In a recent survey of 123,000 wireless customers, Pure Talk was the only wireless company to receive 5 stars in every category: coverage, support, value, and data. What else do you need to know? Switch to Pure Talk today and get any plan, including their top shelf unlimited data plan, for just $15 a month for your first 3 months. No contract, no commitment. Dial pound 250, say micro, and let Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team help you make the switch.
This hour of the Chris X Show is brought to you by the John Doe is Coming Fan Club in favor of God, family, country, and practical common sense solutions for America.
This True Sand commentary is brought to you by Ability Tree Experts.
Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professionals. Call 281-441-4179.
From KSEV, here's political contributor Ben Strusand.
To my fellow Republicans who supported John Cornyn and won't vote for Ken Paxton, you're about to give control of the U.S. Senate over to the socialists that now run the Democrat Party. Their plan is to pack the Supreme Court, give statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico so as to add 4 new Democrats to the Senate and control the Electoral College. Do you really want that on your conscience? And don't think for a minute that somehow progressive socialist turned moderate James Talarico won't support the Bernie's team. He won't have a choice or another election for 6 years. We all know what it's like to support crap candidates when a Republican primary is over. We've held our nose and voted Republican so many times that the smell doesn't stink anymore. It's your turn. Whatever problems you have with Paxton, and he's got a few, pale in comparison to the damage that will be done if you allow a Democrat to win a Senate race in Texas. Besides, he doesn't sport any swastikas, his relationships with women were consensual, and he thinks Hamas is a bunch of murderers. With Talarico, you get men playing in women's sports, the DEI agenda, unfettered illegal immigration, and handcuffs on police, not criminals. So starting with John Cornyn's Senate buddies John Thune and Rick Scott, get over it before it's too late. Spend the money. Saying I told you so might make you feel better, but only briefly. Besides, we wouldn't be in this position if Cornyn had retired and let a new generation take over. Texas Republicans read the polling and knew he was done for, but you all seem to think that you're indispensable. I'm Ben Strusand, and that's my view.
Ben Strusand, only on AM 700 KSEV.
Thank goodness our weather experts are providing us with hurricane tracking charts and reminding us to be prepared for big storms. But they overlook one very important thing, the damage and destruction from broken limbs and uprooted trees. Call Louis Flory at Ability Tree Experts today, my friend for nearly 40 years. at 281-441-4179 and let him explain how this problem can be minimized with professional pruning. You see, when the tree canopy is too thick and dense, the tree can be completely blown over and tree limbs broken, causing terrible damage to the tree and maybe your home. Where tree limbs break, sap will ooze, and that attracts harmful insects. So you need to call Louis Flory today at 281-441-4179 and have his experts come out and professionally prune your trees to withstand sudden storms that are so frequent this time of year. Visit their website at abilitytrees.com. That's 281-441-4179. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professional.
KSEV 700.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's ChrisXradio.
What we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country. This message must be read in every newspaper, heard on every radio, seen on every television. This message must resound throughout the entire interlink.
And now, your host.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Chris X.
Well, breaking news. The WNBA has ruled that Enes Kanter Freedom and Royce White are ineligible for the draft. So I guess maybe they're finally figuring out what a W in the WNBA stands for. I think what happened was the people who run the WNBA was watching yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was yesterday when Enes Kanter Freedom was in the audience. And one of the players, one of the women, was mouthing off at him, does a Dolce Fino consulting and does a fine job of keeping corrupt politicians and criminals and cops and judges and you name it, keeps them all in check. When Wayne D shows up with a microphone and a camera, it's usually not going to be a good day. He even had a judge that he didn't even show up with. Like I said, he showed up, the judge wasn't in court. It was I guess late during the COVID era, and the judge threw Wayne Dolcefino in jail for asking questions. That was it. The guy kind of recognized him, was like friendly at first, and then goes, "Oh, wait a minute, you're Wayne Dolcefino. We got to throw you in jail." So I had him on the program to talk about that, and he filled in for Salcedo. So now we got Wayne E.D. and Kreger's holding down the mornings. So brand new morning show here, but the afternoons are still rock solid here with ChrisXradio. At least as far as I know. I was asking our producer, Casholine. Casholine, are we still on? Are we still good?
Still on, still good.
Okay, good. And by the way, the entire transmitter done blowed up on Friday for 700 AM. We're still on 1540, which I thought that went away, but somehow we're still on. So anyway, but there was that. And of course, we've got our KSEV radio app, so you can still get us. But apparently a box in the transmitter done blowed up. It wasn't prepared for this Texas heat and done blowed up on us. And man, shout out to our engineers who got in and got things back up and running. They're working on the power. You guys know that we had to drop down power and move to a different transmitter. The fries are really good. So anyway, enjoyed that. All right, welcome to the second hour of the program. Glad to have you here with us on ChrisXradio. 281-558-KSEV if you want to join us. 281-558-5738. According to a new report, Iran has put a $10 million bounty on the head of 20-year-old Barron Trump, Donald Trump's youngest son. So Iran is not really they don't seem to be doing a good job of wanting to play by community standards by putting hits on the 20-year-old children of our leaders. And that you already know they've already got a hit out on Trump. So there's that. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced today that the U.S. is launching an economic onslaught to isolate Iran from the global community, warning that the countries and businesses that do any business with Tehran will risk provoking U.S. sanctions. If we got time, we'll get into that. Along with that, President Trump announced this morning he's going to impose a 50% duty on all trucks, cars, and steel from Canada in response to their ridiculously high tariffs on American agricultural products. Yeah, that's right. All you guys said, we can't have tariffs here in America. Well, sure as hell Canada has them on us, and so do all the other countries, but we can't tariff them back. Wait, what? Don't ask. You get into sure to see. We'll get to that. Carmelo Anthony's conviction and 35-year prison sentence was upheld and will stand after a judge formally denied his bid for a new trial. Retired District Judge Michael Chitty bang 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 Chitty bang bang ordered Saturday after reviewing Anthony's motion, the court record, evidence and arguments, briefs, and relevant case law. Some new details came out that were not very flattering, to say the least, that were withheld in the first trial. So the lucky little dirtbag didn't get a worse sentence, which is amazing. That he'd fantasized about murdering someone, stabbing him with a knife, wanted to lick the blood off the knife after he did it. Real quality individual. But don't worry, it's a race war. He was black, and the kid he stabbed to death was white. Therefore, racism. What? How does whitey become the problem when a black kid stabs a white kid for no reason in the heart, and you got to go make up a bunch of stuff about how the white kid was bad all of a sudden, and that the black kid who had been fantasizing about stabbing somebody with a knife did... Who are the racists again? And speaking of racism, Representative Jasmine Crockett said the black community in her state is not too keen on one James Talarico. During a recent interview, Crockett claimed, once again, she claimed a while back that race played a role in her loss in the primary to Talarico. Basically, she called the Democrats a bunch of racist dirtbags. For once, I agree with her. She stated, personally, I don't feel the excitement necessarily exists within the black community right now about James Talarico. I don't feel like they're excited, right? But I do have some amazing black candidates running for office in some of the largest counties. So Jazzy's only going to support the black candidates. And that's what she's going to tell her black followers. But you're racist for pointing that out. But it does show that James Talarico has an issue with black voters, and that literally could cost him the election right there. But right now, they're neck and neck. It's anybody's game, according to the polls, if you trust the polls. And California doing California things. Governor Gavin Newsom has signed California's new controversial Stop Nick Shirley Act into law, which critics say will suppress investigative journalism in the state. Basically, they don't want anyone to be allowed to go ask them about their fraud and cheating with Assembly Bill 2624. They passed a law to stop people from asking questions. Interesting. Anyway, 281-558-KSEV. If you want to join us, 281-558-5738. Let's go and go to the phones, pick up with Michael listening in Woodsville. Michael, thank you for hanging on. Welcome to ChrisXradio.
The Anthony Carmelo, he got 35 years. And the way I understand it is 17 and a half years he comes up for parole. He doesn't get turned loose. He comes up for parole.
Yes.
So hopefully he'll get denied parole for 35 years.
We'll see. I mean, if he can behave himself in prison, but then again, he clearly couldn't behave himself outside of prison, so that doesn't bode well. But yeah, like I said, I think you're stating exactly how it works. In 17 and a half years, he is eligible for parole, and if he can get a sympathetic parole board, well, then he may be released after 17 and a half years. If not, or if he can't behave himself in prison, well, then you're right. He may end up serving every minute of his 35 years. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I don't know the kid. From what I've heard about him, he's not a very good kid, and his family failed him miserably, repeatedly throughout the entirety of his life. Usually guys like that, they end up not doing too well. So, I mean, he could go become a model prisoner, but then again, he could become a gangbanger and end up dead behind bars. There's no telling.
Well, the two brothers that killed their mom and dad?
Yeah. What was I'm trying to remember their names.
Well, they've been up for parole, I don't know how many times, but they've been denied.
Yeah,
and they even came up with their, they were abused and this and that is the reason why they did it.
Yeah. They came up with a lot of excuses, but yeah, they were, like I said, just horrible dirtbag murderers. And yeah, they haven't been able to get a sympathetic parole board for them just yet. So I can't remember. They were the brothers, and I can't remember what their name is. Right now, somebody's probably screaming at the radio. Maybe I can look them up here during the break. But yeah, they have not been able to get parole just yet, and nor should they. Those guys should never breathe free air again for murdering their parents, because if I remember correctly, it was basically just for the inheritance money is why they murdered their parents. And that you got to be a pretty sick individual if you just want to kill people just to get their money, especially members of your own family. It's pretty sad state of affairs.
Yeah. Okay, 10-4.
10-4. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate the call. That's Michael out in Woodsville. Let's take a break. We'll come back, pick up with Joe in Sugar Land. Yeah, the Carmelo Anthony thing. I've seen this game. I've seen this story before. Generally, it doesn't go well for guys like that who go into prison. Now, maybe prison is not a place you want to be. I can tell you that. For anyone. It's a very sad story because he's a young man who had his entire life ahead of him, but for whatever reason, he bought into this garbage that he wanted to go run around with a knife and stab somebody and kill him, and then he did it. Which tells me, was it the cheese ain't all the way on the cracker, as somebody said one time. The guy's not right. Doesn't mean he's crazy. Doesn't mean he didn't know what he was doing, but it does mean he's a terrible human being. And we'll see what ends up happening. So, all right, 281-558 KSEV. You're listening to Chris X Radio. We'll be right back. Pick up with Joe in Sugar Land on the other side.
The resistance is futile. Chris X Radio. Chris X Radio.
Where we go in life matters, and what we do matters, and we know that taking the wrong road won't produce the best outcomes. Hi, I'm Kathy with Baker Mortgage. And we want you to take the right path when it comes to your mortgage. We live in a world of information overload, but always consider the source. And these are not generally going to be from your big bank or a random offer that comes across your screen. Remember, you're always going to get a better deal on one that you go looking for than one that comes looking for you. You need to deal with somebody who gives a you-know-what, whether or not you're happy in the end. At Baker Mortgage, we do it right. We haven't been around for 68 years because we're lucky. We don't sell CDs, insurance, or anything else. We just provide a great mortgage experience. Isn't that what you're looking for? Call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License number 263213.
Houston Methodist Hospital has been named the best hospital in Texas for patient care and quality for the 15th year in a row by U.S. News and World Report. We're proud to be a top-ranked hospital in the country, ranked in 11 specialties. For more than 100 years, Houston Methodist has provided our community with the highest quality care. That's the difference between practicing medicine and leading it. Houston Methodist, leading medicine.
Hey KSEV listeners, your favorite app just got even better. Introducing the new and improved KSEV app. Faster, smarter, and easier to use than ever. With a fresh new design, improved features, and a smoother listening experience. Whether you're at home, on the go, or anywhere in between, the KSEV app is ready to keep up with you. Download the new KSEV app today and experience the upgrade for yourself.
Plumbing emergencies never happen at a convenient time. Usually they happen on the weekends, holidays, or while you're away on vacation. I'm Richard Sod, president of Nick's Plumbing. When you find yourself facing a plumbing emergency, call the licensed and experienced professionals at Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services. Nick's Plumbing has been Houston's first choice for all your plumbing needs since 1979. Our experts can take your most difficult plumbing issues and fix them fast, fix them right, and usually for less than you'd expect. Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services is the right choice for any plumbing job, from a leaky faucet whole house repipe, or a complete sewer line replacement. You can count on Nick's Plumbing to do the job right. With over 40 years in business and over 150,000 satisfied customers, Nick's wants to be your plumbing company. Nick's Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-868-9907, or visit us on the web, nicksplumbing.com.
MPL 38548.
Call Nick's Plumbing today. We're on the way.
And now, back to Chris X Radio. Chris X Radio on the Voice of Texas.
It's Lyle and Eric Menendez. Thank you very much for calling in and sending me messages. Those are the two brothers that are murder their family or their parents. And hopefully they never breathe free air again. They're dirtbags. Dear Lord. All right, welcome back to Chris X Radio. Yeah, Lyle, don't they have a TV show about them or something? There's all of these real crime shows and series now that are on. So, and I know they're all over. I remember what they look like. I just couldn't remember their names. But yeah, they're the Menendez brothers. Oh, by the way, they're white guys. So it's funny because I don't just saddle up with somebody because of the color of their skin. I actually look at the evidence that has been presented forth and determine whether the content of the character is there. And sometimes the content of someone's character is really awful. And you should never get a pass because of your skin color. But we live in a bizarre world now where people side with Luigi Mangione because he's a good-looking guy. But he was good-looking. He murdered that old fat guy that was the bank dude who was rich and evil. And he shot him in the back, murdered him in cold blood. And there are people that want to saddle up. Just like that, it's this terrible case of the woman who had postpartum and murdered her children. And now she's on. She admits to killing them, but says she wasn't in her right mind. Clearly she wasn't. And then there are women that are just jumping up and siding with this woman. I'm like, but she murdered her children. I know postpartum depression is a real thing. I get it. But dear Lord. And if I was dating someone and they were saddling up with that, that's really going to curtail my my want to have children with that person. Dear Lord. All right, welcome back to the program. Glad to have you here. 281-558 KSEV, 281-558-5738. You're listening to Chris X Radio. We have this segment and two more remaining. So if you want to get in, we'll happily take your phone calls as we normally do. This consistent, conservative common sense in the afternoons. Yeah, I know we got a brand new morning show, but things haven't changed. We're still the same here in the afternoons. So we'll keep doing our thing in the afternoons while Wayne D is cracking heads and dropping leads in the morning. We'll still be doing our regular thing in the afternoons, having a good time, having fun. I love that Trump's new thing, by the way. He tells everybody to have a good time. All right, great to see you. I'm glad you're here. Have a good time. He's a very youthful 80-year-old man. He's starting to look his age, though. He is starting to look older. So, like I said, I hope he so far, knock on wood, I've been doing a lot of knocking on wood lately. He's been a very healthy guy. And once again, he's got a little extra weight on him, but Trump has been really healthy. So, genetics, man. I don't think I have those genetics. I'm going to have to watch out. I don't think I'll be able to get away with what he does. But talk about active. The guy doesn't sleep. He stays up all night. Crap posting on Twitter X True Social. Just goes and crap posts people, which is hilarious. So, anyway, welcome back to the program. All right, if you want to join us, 281-558-KSEV, 281-558-5738. Let's go to Joe listening in Sugar Land. Joe, thank you for hanging on. Welcome to Chris X Radio.
Hey, Chris. How many of those, I'm assuming it was only women and a couple of, limp-wristed Democrat guys, I guess, that want to, I don't know, man, but I heard there was people cheering for the lady that killed her kids. I wonder what the overlap is on, what percentage of them are for abortion.
I'm going to go with probably 100%. That's just me guessing, but
good guess.
Yeah.
So what I really wanted to call in, I'm just having deep thoughts and all this stuff you're talking about. But what I really wanted to call in is like, man, first of all, the most important thing is, can we please just introduce a bill in every state and make people vote for it or against it to call a baby a person already, so we can get over this stupid sidestep argument of, well, they may not be a human being yet, well, they might not be a person, they might not be all that BS. Like, can we just? I heard there was a state where they passed a law that's like a baby's a person. I'm like, oh, what? I don't know if that was like a fake rumor on FB or what, if that was real, but. Like, that's what we need to push for in every state. I know a baby's a person. I'm pretty sure you know a baby's a person. For some reason, we got this loophole where people can go around murdering babies. It's like 66,600,000. We're past 70 million now or something. It's just insane. And then the other thing I wanted to ask was, like, when can we get one of these? So one of these basketball players in the NBA apparently got paid off to, like, just sit down and shut up, which is what they're used to doing. A lot of football players and basketball players, they're like, hey, whoa, sit down and shut up. And they're like, okay. But, or like, jump around and do a woogie and we'll give you $1 million and sit down and shut up. But one of them supposedly was still going to go play with, because he decided he's a woman, he's going to go play with women. Why can't we get a few good basketball players that with all this, especially on the East Coast and Ivy League schools and California, areas where the parents are demonic sickos, all of a sudden there's so many kids that are trans. Why can't we find anybody that can play basketball? I'm pretty sure I could go play with the women. Why can't we find anybody that can play basketball to go, that feels like they're a woman, to go dunk on these ladies and make a joke out of the whole thing, satire this whole thing already. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Joe, the WNBA has now ruled that Enes Kanter Freedom and Royce White are ineligible for the draft. So they truly actually know what a woman is. They're just not willing to admit it publicly because they're woke, lying jerks.
So they didn't rule that men can't play or that they're men, or they just ruled those two guys can't play?
Well, from what I can tell here, according to the latest press release, yeah, they've ruled that they're are they banned because they're men? Well, that would be the sensible conclusion, right? I don't know. I don't know why they're saying they're not allowed to play.
That's what I'm saying. We need some people to rally up. We need a bunch of guys that want to beat girls down in basketball to go ahead and do that, and then we need a bunch of other people to start filing, to get states to put it up. To put it up where they can pass it or not, that a baby is a person. And we need to hit these fronts hard because they're killing babies and they're killing girls. I mean, it's got to be. Can you imagine if you're a girl and you're like, man, I really did like to play basketball. I mean, or I really did like to swim or run track or bike. But what's the point? I mean, might have to go to a locker room with the guys. By the time I'm in college, they're going to beat me anyway. Like, I mean, come on, can we not stand up for the women and do something for babies? I mean, we should have a conservative group that hits these fronts at the same time.
On this, in the U.S. has ruled that, hey, listen, guys should not be participating in women's sports. So once again, trying to go through there and find a bunch of guys to go through there and then force them to admit their hypocrisy. Well, that once again, their hypocrisy knows no limits on the left.
Yeah, because they're going to have to wait. They're going to have a way to turn them all down. Did you just say Donald Trump ruled? How many coins does that guy have, by the way? I'm surprised he has time to govern and get us away from this catastrophic market catastrophe that we're about to have, because he's like, doesn't he have like 3 different coins now? Like Trump coin and like Doja Trump and like Barron coin. Like, I mean, I don't even know. And they're doing all these developments. I don't know how the guy has time to do anything, like with all these developments and all these crypto coins. But by the way, for all your listeners that are in stocks, y'all need to get over into commodities, because just look up the Buffett factor. Look up all the signs, the main market signs from when 01, 08, the Great Depression. The Great Depression, we were 100% overvalued, or right now we're like 200% overvalued. 30% of it in recent printed money and funneling money back and forth to tech companies. That's why, what's that guy, the Big Short? The guy in the Big Short? He's shorting the market now, and he's shorting tech companies specifically. And when the tech companies crash, it's 30% of the market. We're about to have higher inflation and a big crash. So if you got money, you don't want it in the market, but you do need it in something, I would just get some commodities. Even copper would be better than being in the market by next year.
Okay, well, thank you for the call, Joe. You're sort of all over the place, but it is illegal for a woman to get an abortion in the state of Texas. I don't want California dictating what we do here in Texas. So that, once again, if people want to get in their states and other states that want to go through there and try to do what you're saying, I'm all for it. If people want to do that, absolutely. Also, we have ruled here in Texas that, men should not be participating in women's sports, especially collegiate and high school. So there's that aspect of it. We'll see about what ends up happening with the WNBA, but it's kind of hard to, once again, to push that. I know we're trying to call them out on their hypocrisy, but their hypocrisy knows no limits. When you have no standards, the only standards that Democrats have are double standards. So basically, there's no level that will ever make them admit they're wrong. There was a woman playing for the WNBA screaming at Enes Kanter this weekend because he was wearing a shirt that defined what a woman was, and he was standing up for women's rights, and she was mad at him for doing that in a league that will refuse to allow men to play, well, not the men they want. I think there may be some men playing in that league, but once again, they're not going to allow these guys to come in there. And once again, when it comes to the WNBA, to be honest with you, Joe, I don't care. The only reason anyone is talking about their stupid league and the reason that anyone is watching their stupid league is because of the way they're treating Caitlin Clark, the way they're treating Sophie Cunningham. They've made it into a justice warrior thing. It's all virtue signaling now. Their sport is garbage. Have you ever watched it? Have you watched what's-her-face, the supposed face, the black girl, whatever her name is, the one that was always fighting with Caitlin Clark? Because Caitlin's better than her, and they didn't want the white girl being the best one in the WNBA. So all it is a bunch of woke people melting down every week, and then people like us talking about it. And then, once again, I agree with what Enes Kanter, Freedom, and Royce White were trying. They went in to register for the draft, and the WNBA is ruled. So apparently they rule they know what a man is. We'll see how far their hypocrisy goes, because I'll tell you right now, it knows no limits. And that is how the left is in general. And it seems like you're going to try and rehash battles on the abortion front, because in Texas, it is very different than things are in, say, New Mexico or California or Colorado or whatever, some of these other states. I believe in states' rights, as in, I don't want these lefties coming in and changing our state, and I don't want these lefties coming in and electing someone like James Talarico here in Texas that will simply, he's another woke, leftist, complete psychopath that is going to get, like I said, I'm hoping the Paxton campaign can go ahead and kind of start offsetting some of that spending now. But that's what they're doing. They're trying to buy the seat. And if they can, they will. Texas is the shining light on the hill. So I don't want to see us wasting our time and resources on things that have already been done. The Supreme Court has already ruled on, Roe v. Wade. It's pretty much settled at this point, unless they want to try to go through and settle it again, which I don't really see any need. Yeah, it's terrible. No, you're right. What those other states are doing is awful. You got places like, is it Massachusetts that's trying to go up until the moment of birth? They can do, once again, trying to put common sense and liberalism in the same sentence, it makes no sense. Dr. Savage was right. Liberalism is a mental disorder. Simple as that. All right, let's take a break because we went way over. You're listening to ChrisXradio. We got 2 segments remaining. And you were going off about the market. I don't know. Last time I checked, the market was doing pretty well. Last time I checked, we went from Biden with 9.2% inflation to like 2.9% under Trump. So the inflation, things have gone a whole lot better in a better direction. Is it perfect? No. Do things still cost too much? Yes. Price of gas too much? Yes. It is so hard to get that spending down once it's jacked up to that point. In fact, I don't know if it's ever happened in history. Anyway, 281-558-KSEV. You're listening to ChrisXradio. We'll be right back. We've got 2 segments remaining.
You're listening to ChrisXradio. ChrisXradio on the Voice of Texas.
After a hard rain, you can see them. The water stains on the ceiling or the dripping water from a recessed light. Now you start to get nervous because leaks can cause big problems.
Once the water enters the structure, the trouble starts. Water weakens rafters and beams over time. It soaks through drywall and damages the insulation in your home.
And Roland, don't forget about mold. It grows fast in our humidity and causes all kinds of health problems.
I'd really hate to see you spend thousands on expensive structural or drywall repairs or mold removal projects, especially when we can fix those leaks quickly at Tejas Roofing.
And most of our leak repairs are under $500. This is Deb and Roland Tejada from Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. Call us when you first see that leak, 281-251-0304. See our work online at TejasRoofingandContracting.com. Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
Tune in each Sunday morning at 9 a.m. for On the Money with your host and CEO of Allied Wealth Texas, Ryan Wheelis, who can help you live your richest life possible during your retirement years. That's each Sunday at 9 a.m. right here on AM 700 KSEV.
Hi, this is Michael Miller. Join me this weekend for the Backyard Bay radio program presented by Miller Pools and Texan Pools, now at our new time every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. And what we do here on the Backyard Bay radio program is talk about your backyard. And this time of year, wow, it's so hard not to just spend all your time out in the Backyard Bay. And I know sometimes you have questions. That's why we do the Backyard Bay radio program, to get you good, solid answers to any kind of questions that you may have concerning your swimming pools, or I'm looking to build a new swimming pool. Join me this weekend for the Backyard Bay radio program, now at our new time, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., right here on The Voice.
Plumbing emergencies never happen at a convenient time. Nix Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nix Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-868-9907, or visit us on the web, nixplumbing.com.
NPL 38548.
From the KSEV Weather Center, tonight expect partly cloudy skies and humid conditions with a low of 79. Tomorrow will bring partial sunshine and toasty temperatures, reaching a high of 101. Tomorrow night will be clear to partly cloudy, remaining warm and humid with a low of 80. As we move into Wednesday, anticipate hot weather with partial sunshine and a high of 100. Thursday will also be hot with a mix of clouds and sun, and there is a chance of a thunderstorm in spots during the afternoon with the high of 100. With the KSEV Weather Center forecast, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Jason Caterina.
Fake news hates us. Fake news hates us. ChrisXradio. ChrisXradio.
This is such a good Extreme song. Rest in peace. This is a killer album. By the way, I haven't listened to Extreme's new stuff lately. It's pretty good. I need to go back and listen to it. I saw that ZZ Top performed in Austin over the weekend. You know, they lost the drummer. He passed away, and then they replaced him with a guy that was filling in, you know, occasionally when he couldn't because of health issues. And so now it's just the Reverend Willie G. Billy Gibbons is the only remaining member of ZZ Top. It's sad because, like I said, he was, by the way, I did not realize Billy Gibbons was born in Houston, but then he lived in the Dallas area. All I know is he's a pretty darn good guitar player, pretty darn good singer, and he still sounds good. He's got that, you know, that rough voice, you know. Rumors spread round. Hey, the guy still sounds great. And he can still play. And he plays with the guitar way low. I'll never forget, it was Sammy Hagar's Rock and Roll Road Trip, I believe. And he went and there was a ZZ Top concert. This is probably 15 years ago now. And he was backstage before they, obviously during the day, well before they played. And Billy Gibbons had his guitar. And he was like, here, you want to play it? And Sammy was like, whoa, I'd love to play it. And he started playing. And Sammy, everything he was bending out of tune. And he was like, what do you have on this guitar? He's like, I have sevens. He's like, these are the lightest gauge strings I have ever played in my life. And Sammy was like, I can't play this guitar. Because, you know, most people play nines. That's the standard. Some will play tens on my really cheap guitars. I learned a trick years ago. When you're poor, you have to improvise. So I always had cheap guitars. I can make cheap guitars sound really good, and I can make good guitars sound really bad. That's the kind of guitar player I am. So I learned that if you put 10-gauge strings instead of 9-gauge, which is a slightly heavier gauge on a cheaper guitar, it stays in tune better and it sounds better. Gives it a fuller, heavier sound. So I learned that I could do that. And so on all my cheap guitars, I generally have 10s on them. And then the good or the better guitars, or the good guitars, you can get away with 9s or even 8s. But those strings are so light. Now, they're much easier to play, but I was never much of a lead guitar player, so it didn't really matter. Well, Billy Gibbons is playing 7s. And I guess that's because he knows how to play them just right. And man, he sounds great. But it is sad losing those rockers. Anyway, welcome back to ChrisXradio. We've only got one segment remaining, so we'll wrap up this segment. And then if you want to get in for the final segment of the show, 281-558 KSEV. Okay, so I get a message during the break. Once again, the Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric, those are the two dirtbags that keep getting denied parole. So that's good. He said, Georgia and Alabama, Arizona, Missouri, Louisiana all have laws that defines a fetus as a person. So, Joe, states are already doing it, apparently. Said U.S. Code, Born Alive Infants Protection Act explicitly defines a person, human being, a child, an individual to include every infant who is born alive in any stage of development in those states. So they're already doing it. Basically, what I'm not going to tell you what to do, Joe, because as you know, I'll never tell you that. I do know that you do get excited, and that's okay. It's good to have that excitement. I like it. But that being said, I don't want you running down rabbit holes and fighting battles that you don't need to be fighting. And I don't think at this point, the states' rights, the Supreme Court has already ruled. I don't think we need to go back and have them rule again on the same thing. It's hard enough to get them just to rule properly on a regular basis. Lord knows it's hard enough. So that being said, somebody, by the way, on social media is now posting pictures of Marco Rubio as the general manager for the Houston Astros. So he looks like he's got another job to add to the memes, which I actually love that. That's pretty hilarious. Anyway, so there's a lot going on. And Joe was talking about the WNBA, trying to get them to admit their hypocrisy. Once again, they're liars. They clearly know there's a difference between men and women, but they're going to lie pushing their woke agenda because that's what wokesters do. That's why you can't ever argue with these liberals. You can't get them to admit they're lying. They will go to the wall for their stupidity. And it's impossible, really, to get them to go and say, okay, a man's a man's and a woman's a woman. Sorry. It's kind of like the debate I had with someone here recently on the air, talking about James Talarico. And he said, well, I don't think he's running a campaign against himself. And I went, so really, what about transing the children? He's like, that's all you got is transing the children's? I care about everybody. But this is such a small population, such a small number. I'm like, so it's a small number that you don't care about that get... I've used this, I've said this in the past, and I'm going to continue to say it because I came up with it. Democrats talk out of both sides of their ass. I'm sure you've heard the term talking out of their ass. Well, they talk out of both sides of theirs. Anyway, all right, let's take a break. We'll come back, wrap up today's show. Chris, out in Spring, hold on, you'll be up next. It's just, once again, this is a battle that will be eternal. Because there's nowhere on God's green earth that you can't go hide where the Democrats won't try to hunt you down and rule over you. So we will fight this battle forever. So it's best to take it head on right here, right now. That's why we do it. Get everybody on the same page. Get us prepared for the battle. I don't want to fight. I wanted to go live my life the way I wanted to live it and let you live your life the way you want to live it. Unfortunately, the woke, Marxist, leftist don't agree with that statement. They want to rule over you, and they'll do it in any way you will allow them. 281-558 KSEV. We've got one segment remaining here on our Manic Monday edition of ChrisXradio.
ChrisXradio, Texas born, Texas raised. The voice of Texas.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate. Our country's founding fathers drafted a document that is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. My friends at O'Hara & Company Real Estate, we believe we're at a precipice in time where we must take back our country. We must stand up for our freedoms or lose them forever. Please don't sit idle and let it slip away. Don't let anyone force you to do something you choose not to. As JFK said, if not us, who? If not now, when? If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393, 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. I'm Kevin O'Hara. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
Chris X here to tell you about Humble Amco Transmission and AC Specialists. People who know go to Amco. I personally trust Jay Streckfus and Humble Amco with all of my vehicle's needs. With complete car care, they'll take care of all of your auto needs as well. Always a free check engine light inspection, and tell them that Chris X sent you for a free engine scan. Call Jay today at 281-446-0862. That's 281-446-0862, or online at humbleamco.com.
Plumbing emergencies never happen at a convenient time. Nick's Plumbing offers free estimates and free second opinions. Call Nick's Plumbing and Sewer Services, 713-8...
to go. He felt stuck and alone. So we showed up fast with the right spring and the right parts to fix it right. We didn't talk about the price. We didn't wait till the morning. We fixed it right then. Because at Garage Door Doctor, it's never just about the job. It's about the person behind it. The dad, the veteran, the grandpa, the neighbor. Hi, I'm Tommy Mello, owner of Garage Door Doctor. When you need help, we're the ones that show up. Call Garage Door Doctor today or schedule online at garagedoordoctor.biz. We fix garage doors fast with quality parts designed to last a lifetime because we're proud to serve the people who rely on us.
When it comes to garage doors, no one knows more than the doctor. Garage Door Doctor.
And now, back to ChrisXradio. ChrisXradio on the voice of Texas.
It's funny, somebody sent me, who was it? Oh, Randy sent me an interview with Ted Nugent. Time where his dogs went after a Gemsbach. I don't even know what a Gemsbach is, but it's an animal that has horns. And he was out on his ranch. And when he climbed through the fence to try to go get, there was a baby, to get the dogs off of the Gemsbach, I guess, that the mother attacked him. And he said the horns were just far enough that they hit on both sides of his head and didn't hit him directly. And he had his 10-millimeter pistol that he shot, and he ended up shooting it a few times because it was not backing off. But it was interesting. It was one of the gun shows he was on. And I interviewed Ted a couple of times in the past. He's good. He's smart. He also says a lot of the same stuff. But the guy does a million, or he used to. I think he backed off some of the interviews he used to do. By the way, here, before we go back to the phones and wrap things up, President Trump will be in Houston on Thursday headlining a private fundraiser for Ken Paxton here ahead of the November midterms. He's expected to remain in town to honor the crew of the Artemis II on Friday. The event comes as Republicans, of course, are working to try to hold on to the majorities here, and especially in Texas, as the U.S. Senate race between Ken Paxton and James Talarico has become increasingly competitive. Paxton definitely needs to continue raising money and needs to start spending some of that money in order to offset all of the spending that Talarico has already been doing. Anyway, on Friday, the president is expected to be at the Johnson Space Center to present the Space Medal of Honor to the Artemis II crew, which included NASA astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. They were the first ones to travel around the moon in more than a half a century. So we're sort of getting in a new space era here in America, in the world, especially with the release of all of this crazy stuff. with the UAPs and all that nonsense. All right, let's go to the phones here before we have to wrap up today's program. Let's pick up with Chris, who's been patiently holding in spring. Chris, thanks for hanging on. Welcome to ChrisXradio.
Hey, buddy. There's a lot of talk that we just hit $40 trillion in debt. And because of the impotence of Congress, the Supreme Court ruling on the tariffs really, really, really done us in here. We were actually going to start paying down that debt. Actually, we were collecting a lot of revenue. And the low IQ Supreme Court, an alleged conservative court, stuck it to all of us and to the American people. So we have Congress and the courts to think about that. Donald Trump did what he could, and these people didn't have the self-esteem to do what was right. And I just wanted to talk about this, the commissioner's court. We need to just talk about this all the way to election. If I'm Tom Ramsey, I don't know who's advising him. I just abscond now. There's no point in showing up. There's no point in participating. Your constituents want nothing to do with those other 4 members. And also, I've made a conscious effort. I'm done with the toll tax. I'm not paying for the tolls anymore. I'm done with it all. So we're going to be proactive here, Chris, because if we can't get anything from Austin, we're going to just have to do it ourselves. So let's be smart here, people. We can fight these leftists. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you for the call, Chris. Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned this, the $40 trillion, which I haven't talked a lot about it, which I probably should talk more. So, no, absolutely. That's a good point that you make. And you're right. The Supreme Court, now, they only rule against one element of the tariffs. So Trump is able to institute these other tariffs, which he will continue to do. And you're absolutely right. It really hindered our ability, once again, especially considering all of the other countries have tariffs on us. And now people are like, we can't afford a war with an economic war with Canada, while Canada has these huge tariffs on our farm products. Why is that somehow okay, but we're not allowed to issue tariffs on them? It's utter insanity. And I agree. I love the fact you called them the low IQ Supreme Court, okay? They're very low IQ. They should be better. They did rule at least Trump can continue building the ballroom for future presidents, which is so insane that Democrats are that nuts now. They'll take him to court over building a ballroom that that future administrations will be able to use. It almost makes 0 sense. In fact, it doesn't almost make 0 sense. It makes 0 sense. So we live in a bizarre world now where everything is political. Like I said, oh no, we got it. Everything's political. Sorry. It's utter insanity is what it is. So, but that being said, this is where we are in this day and age. Unfortunately, this is where we're at. The Democrats are going to fight every single thing they can in order to stop Trump any way possible for the duration of his term. That's why it's so important that we stay involved. We definitely have to stay involved, Chris. You're absolutely right. We need to go in. We need to vote. We need to vote like our life depends on it, because in many ways it does. We cannot continue to allow leftists to rule with impunity over us. They're dirtbags. It is not a coincidence the way they cheat in elections and what they do. And the next time someone tries to argue with me that they don't cheat in elections, I'm like, well, why do they appoint elections administrators that quote unquote botch election after election after election until they're removed and then turn it over to duly elected people that handled the elections before? Why do Democrats do that? And they did that here in Harris County, where they hired some dude that was in charge of providing paper to the precincts, and for some reason he wasn't available on election day because he had another job he had to work. What? And then you talk about the ineptitude of Republicans. The one main case dropped out, which now she's the candidate for another race. But the one main candidate, but then the others got dumped because they didn't file their paperwork or their attorney didn't in time or something. Like, what? Wait, what? Anyway, appreciate the call, Chris. All right, gang, we're done. We're out of time. We're done now. I guess Joe Pags is up next, I do believe. Doesn't matter. We'll be back tomorrow from 4 to 6 for our Taco Tuesday edition of ChrisXradio. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Be safe, gang.